Fantastic. All right, friends. My name is Mark Thompson. I work on the Angular team at Google. And I have a confession to make right off the bat. You know, the web is changing. And we talked a little bit about this during the Q&A, but here's what I find to be true. Am I still off the camera? Okay, that's friends at home, I care about you. Don't you worry about it. I'm going to try to stay in camera. All right. So here's what's changing. APIs are changing. You can do more now than you've ever been able to do with any web technology. Like, think about the fact that we can write code in our browsers now because the web is so powerful. There was a time when I was first coming up as an engineer, I couldn't even imagine being able to do Photoshop in the browser. I couldn't imagine being able to create a web app in the browser. That was just like magic to me. And now that is not only happening, but that's fully here. And so here's what the side effects of the web changing is that there are two groups that are changing along with it. You know who else is changing? Your users. Oh, sorry, expectations are changing. Because now users and developers are expecting more. What about your users? So your users want more out of your application. If you ever read the comment section on an app, people complain all the time now because they say, well, I will give it 5 stars if it just did this. You ever seen that review before? Or I'm giving 1 star for now because it doesn't connect quite with my smartwatch. I mean, all of these problems because users want more because they know they could have more. And then what's the other side of that story? You all want more, right? Developers, you want more. You want more from your tools because the tools that you've had up to this point have not allowed you to create the experiences for your users that you know not only that they desire, but that they deserve. And you want to be on the forefront of that. You want to be the people creating the experiences that take advantage of what the web has to offer. You want tools that are pleasant to use. They make you feel like you're powerful and they enable you to create. You don't want tools anymore that get in your way. When I was writing code in the very early stages of my career, so I'm older than I may or may not look. Some of y'all like, you look old, I know. No, so I'm in my 40s now. When I first started writing code back when I was around 15, I had to use software that was really hard to use. And I had tools that were really brittle. You know why? Because they expected us to just be happy with whatever was available. Anybody ever used a software called Eclipse before? Right, okay, so some of y'all are like, Eclipse, like the sun going down? No, it's more than that. Eclipse was a platform to just write Java code, but boy, was it brittle. There were no bells and whistles. There was no fancy autocomplete when it first came out, right? And then if you wanted some new feature, you had to figure out how to add the plugin. You had to find a community member who made something that made your experience a little bit better. But now developers want more. You want more, and I'll be honest with you, just like how users deserve a better experience, you deserve a better experience. So let's talk about building the next generation of applications because honestly, Angular, you know, we've been around for some time. We were some of the leaders of the new wave of frameworks that help you build scalable web applications. We were out in the beginning, and a lot of frameworks will admit, oh yeah, we learned what Angular was doing, and then we adopted that to build our thing. And so for a while, you look at Angular and just kind of think to yourself like, well, what are you doing now? If everything is changing, what are you doing? Well, I'll be honest with you. We've changed. We've learned from what's happened in the industry. We've heard from developer feedback. We've heard from user feedback that you want more. And I'm going to tell you how we're working to create an experience for you as a developer to create that next generation of web application. If you're ready for that, give me a double clap on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you ready? Fine. You don't have to clap too loud. You're ready. Guess who else is ready? We're ready. We're ready for the next generation. Let me tell you how. So to get to the next generation, we have to give you what you want. But how do we know what you want? We're not guessing, right? And I think it's tempting to guess as a framework maintainer. You look out and you're like, yeah, people are complaining about these things. Okay, fine. I'm just going to make what I think they want. That is a flawed strategy. And I think that a lot of us have found that out, that you can create something, but if it's not what your users want, guess what they won't do? They won't use it, right? And you have put in a lot of work on something that nobody's going to use. You ever made a meal and you put a lot of work in it, and then your kids was like, man, this is gross. That happens to me all the time when I cook. My son tells me my food is disgusting. He hasn't even had it yet, but it is disgusting because I'm not a good cook. All right. We are evidence-driven. And here's what I mean by evidence-driven. We have this survey. So we have an annual survey where we send out to the Angular and web community. And we got over 10,000 responses last time. And they gave us the feedback, right? They told us, here's the areas you're doing great, but here are the things that we want you to change. Here's where you can improve. So we took that opportunity to evolve Angular. And let me tell you what the themes were that came up for us as we tried to figure things out. You want better developer experience. That's the core thing with Angular, right? Some people said, well, it's hard to learn. I agree. Even when I was learning Angular to work on the team, I'm like, man, this is hard. Why? It feels complex. And then they said they want fewer sharp edges. So what is a sharp edge? Has anyone here ever written any Angular code? Okay, if you've written, okay, oh, so y'all about to be really, you're going to feel very seen right now. All right, you ever written code and then you're like, why do I have to debug the zones in my application to understand why change detection is failing? Now, if you've never written Angular and all that sounds foreign, that is still our fault. Because why should you even have to know that language? That's what we call it sharp edges. The fact that you needed to know so much about the internals to be successful. So this is honest feedback that we got. So let me tell you what we did. The learning journey. This is a project that I was actually personally responsible for. I came in and said, Mark, learn Angular. I said, fine. I was like, this is really hard to learn. And they're like, okay, we'll fix it. Okay, fine. I'll fix it. And so here's how we started fixing it. We came up with a brand new tutorial that taught the latest version of Angular with the latest features, but we wrote it from scratch. We saw the old tutorial that was out there. We took all the feedback and we created something brand new for developers to use right there. But some of you may be like, well, okay, that's okay, but we've trusted your tutorials before and we know how that left us. Fine. Here's what else we did. We took the same tutorial and we made it into videos. So now on the Angular, on YouTube, you can go do a brand new Angular tutorial. I don't know if you see that very handsome icon over there. That's me. But you could take this exact course as a video course right now. So that's another way we did it. But look, we are not stopping there. That is not, we don't want to be satisfied with just a little bit of progress. We're trying to change the world with this tool. So that's what else we did. We went out and we found somebody else who teaches code. We said, hey, we'll collaborate with you. We'll tell you what needs to be taught. And then you can use your platform to teach it. So then this company called SoloLearn, they're kind of like the Duolingo of code learning. They started a course based on the Angular materials. They had 50,000 users the first week. 50,000 new Angular developers using this because bite-sized courses, they reminded people of, I can do it anywhere where I am. You see, so this is going beyond just the core Angular team. We're trying to really change and build for the future of the web, how to get to the next generation. The only way you get to the next generation if you train developers. So we're trying to help train developers. All right, let's talk about the second part. So we want to do smooth updates and web platform evolution. Let's talk about smooth updates first. So we have a built-in tool called ng update. What does that do for you? It literally updates your code and applies code transformations. So if you already have some existing Angular code in an older version, we try to migrate as much of that for you as possible to try to make it as smooth as possible. So we have this one user, KLM. Anybody familiar with this group, KLM? Okay, so they use Angular. They get 500 million views on their webpage, like all the time. Like it's massively popular for them. They stay on the latest and greatest version of Angular. You ever work on a team where you have to stay like 5 versions behind because it's a really hard migration? Yeah, we're really trying to eliminate that problem for Angular users. They stay up to date, and let me tell you how long it takes them. How long does it take them? Okay, there it is. It took only a few hours for them to migrate. And this is a site that serves 500 million users per month. Because of the tooling that we're providing and working with teams everywhere to help create this experience. So that's what I mean by smooth updates. We want you to be able to stay up to date with as little pain as possible. Who likes pain? Nobody. Nobody want no pain. You want to be hurting when you're doing your job. Who wants to go to work and like be hurting? You don't want that. All right. So let me tell you now what's happening. Okay, so I've been talking about all these things about like, oh, Mark, next generation of apps. Okay, now we get to the fun part. I'm gonna tell you about what's now and what's new, like things are coming. I'll tell you exactly what we're doing now to enable you to build the next generation of apps. And then I'll also show you things that are right around the corner. And some of these things I think are really, really gonna make your day. So if you're ready, let me hear you say yeah. If you're ready, let me hear you say yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I'm ready to. Let's go. All right, available now, standalone APIs. Now, what is a standalone API? So back in the days before, this is a lot of code. Don't try to read it, but you see a lot of code. This is just a hello world. But that's a lot of lines. And it's meant to be small because it's not meant for you to dissect the lines. It's meant for you to be annoyed by how many lines it is to get hello world. And that's because what you needed were multiple parts to an application. You needed to know about modules, components, and how to bootstrap your application. And then who's done React before? Anybody done some React? Yeah, so some of y'all are like, what's a module? Like, why are you even talking about modules if this is a front-end framework? Like, what are you doing? Right? And we agree. Modules were a solution that served us at one point, but then we found out that there's a better way forward. So now this same code can be rewritten just like this. This is the entire application front to back. Whole thing, templates, styles, everything can be written just like this. Right now, the template's a one-liner, but all the module stuff is gone. That's what standalone APIs give us. So you can stand away from the modules. But one of our core tenets is what? We are backwards compatible. So if you are on a team that's using Angular and you are like, oh, we want to use this, but we're not going to migrate everything, take your time. Your old code's still going to work. We do not break our users. And if we do, we definitely send out notices. We write blogs about it, but everything, when we add new features, we do it in a backwards compatible way because we want to bring everybody along. That's our goal. Much better code. And then now we've removed this kind of like ambiguous nature, this ambiguous nature between, you hear module, are you talking about like an ESM module or an Angular module? Yeah, don't worry about that, right? So now that is kind of moved out of the way. What about if you're working in an application that you want to migrate to standalone, use that reduced boilerplate, and you want to use it, but you don't want to have to type it all by yourself? I don't want to do that either. We have migrations that you can just run on your code base that can migrate your application. And that's a part of the way that we do a lot of our releases. We add new features, we add migrations to bring you along on the journey with us. For example, if you want to start a new application with Angular, ng is our command line tool. So you do ng, new, name your application. You're like, yeah, we'll do standalone. And then in the upcoming release, we're going to not even require that standalone flag. It'll be by default. You just do ng new application name and it'll all be standalone. You'll get the latest and greatest right out of the box. That's coming for you. All right, let's talk about reactivity. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I say that because reactivity has actually been a larger part of this conference than I expected. There are lots of conversations about reactivity. And for some reason, I've noticed that people are not always mentioning us in that conversation. But let me show you why they should reconsider. So here's something that we're doing. Here's how Angular currently works. You can type into like an input field, and then we do this process called change detection, which is our reactivity system. Like, let's just say for now. And it's magical, right? You don't have to write any functions. You don't have to do anything special. If the state of your application changes, your UI changes. And when I started learning Angular, that was the most exciting part because I didn't have to learn any new concepts. If the state changes, the application changed. That sounds really nice. And it is great until it isn't. And as my Angular developers in the room already know, at scale, change detection based on this concept called zones can be problematic. At scale, it's problematic. Okay, fine. We'll do better. Let me tell you how we're going to do better. We're doing signals in Angular. So when I say signals, we're not doing like an Angular signal. We're doing signals. Okay, so the same concepts that you know and love from signals, that's what we're implementing in Angular. So let's talk about what a signal actually is. You got 3 core primitives. We just say primitives, but you can also consider them just be functions, a part of the code, right? So we're saying you have a signal, a computed, and an effect. Okay, let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about this idea of a signal. A signal is think of a value in a box, but this box is special. Ask me how special. All together, ask me how special. It's so special that it knows how to notify other parts of the application when the value changes. That's what makes it so special, because normally in a non-reactive system, you have to know when the value changes, and then you have to get involved. But with a signal knows, like, oh, I've changed. Let me tell everybody who cares, right? People are like, oh, keep me updated on what you do at your new job. Keep me in the loop. Signals keep you in the loop. Then you have, so here's how you create a signal in Angular. Nothing fancy, no fancy TypeScript or boilerplate. You use a signal factory function, and then you pass in the value, the initial value. Has anyone used signals in any other framework before? Does it look kind of familiar? I know it does. That was on purpose. All right. Well, we did it on purpose because we want to make sure that if people do want to use Angular for their next project, that they come into a place where it feels familiar, right? You can take advantage of the things that Angular brings uniquely to the table. So here's a second primitive. You have computed. Now, computed is another special value container, except for computed is great because you can use multiple signals, so it's like a derived value. When I first heard that was a little bit hard for me to understand. I'm saying, Mark, I know you all are some geniuses. I'm not worried about you. I'll tell you about how I felt. So let me give you an example that helped me to really clarify. When I thought about a derived value, think about your full name, right? So your first name plus your surname. Now, you could have 3 properties in your application for all 3 of them and try to keep them all up to date, right? Or you could have a derived value that says, well, the surname or my last name is just, or my full name is based on my first and my last name. And so if one of those change, then the full name should change. So it's still reactive. And again, I don't have to get involved. So if I have a form for a user, I'm not having to be like, okay, wait, did the first name change? Did the last name change? Let me make sure I update this third field. No, I don't have to get involved because signals are special and they can notify each other and they can notify your application when things change. All right, here's the thing that I like a lot, because you may care yourself, though, that something changed. So you have this idea of an effect. And an effect is just a side effect of when some signals change. So you may actually need to get involved. Okay, maybe you need to make an HTTP request for some data. Maybe you need to write something once the value changes of a signal that you care about. Well, an effect is the perfect place to do that. So here's a very simple example. I won't say so, I don't like that word. Here's just a trivial example. We have first name, last name, and then in the effect function, it's a function. So if any of the signals that are read in this function change, this function is executed. So if you change first name or last name, then that console.log will happen. So signals are all the rage. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody, literally there's somebody next door or 2 doors down who made this framework called Solid, right? Signals is wildly popular and pervasive in that framework. So everybody cares about signals, and we all believe that signals right now, for as best as we know, this is the right way to do it. Most effective way to do it. Next generation of applications. Reactivity everywhere. One of the really cool things about signals in this implementation is that it doesn't only work in your templates, right? You can use a signal in the service, for example, if you wanted to. I'm not sure there's always the best use case. So, be careful when you're writing code. Don't, just because you can do something, don't always do it. All right, you just got to make sure we remember that. But you can use it in your application, other places. That's incredibly powerful. It's not only tied to your template. It's something else. Precision updates. Precision updates. So what does this mean? Well, in Angular, we can do things now that only update the part of the application that changed based on the signal value changing. You see? So instead of having to go through and run the change detection, meaning check every single value on the template, see if anything changed. Now we can say, oh, this one changed. And how will we know? Because it's a signal. So we can know that something happened. Lightweight. Fantastic talk by Ryan Carniato this morning about just the cost of JavaScript and like 0 KB, right? So this is not 0 KB. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's only 2 kilobytes, right? So very lightweight dependency built into the framework though, right? So you're not having to like download something extra. It's already built in for you. We care about you. It's gonna simplify the development. This is simplifying the way that we do it. So conceptually, for Angular developers especially, this is much more simple than trying to understand how change detection works before signals. This, people generally get this. This is pretty, straightforward. What we did before, more complex. Familiar, like I mentioned before, if you came from a framework that already uses signals, it feels like you're at home still. And we left the light on for you so you can walk right in. Interoperability. All right, so this is a really important thing. So as an Angular developer in the Angular community, there are lots of frameworks that do things like manage state and have other parts of the story. Yeah, we're working with those teams. We want to make sure that it's interoperable with things like RxJS. So it's not use signals and then forsake observables. It's use signals where signals make sense because signals are synchronous with an asterisk, right? But think of them generally as synchronous tasks. You use signals. If it's something that's unpredictable that happens over time, that's an observable. So if you're ever thinking about observables and trying to wrap your mind around it, that's a good way to think about it. It's something unpredictable. Like you don't know when a mouse click will happen from a user. You don't know. They may click, they may not click, right, on the button. So it's unpredictable. And then the events that happen over time. From the first click to the last click, how much time has elapsed, right? So that's the way to think about observables for you. But yeah. Oh, did I tell you it was backwards compatible? Remember I mentioned that? Meaning that if you don't use signals in your applications, that's okay. That's okay. When you're ready to migrate, we'll be waiting for you. We're working with these other teams to make sure that they're ready for the migration as well. So we're working all together. All right, so here's the future. Optional zone.js. We're working to make zones optional altogether. Zones are how we've been doing change detection right now. We're working to make that optional where you don't even need it if you don't want to use it. All right, then we're gonna really nail that fine-tuned change detection, where I'm saying like local changes, you'll know when it needs to happen. Overall, Angular's API will be simpler, less things to understand for you, less cognitive weight for you. And then we're gonna see, well, what comes next? How can we help evolve everyone? Because if we're all using signals, then we should all work together to make it better for everybody. It's not about use us or them. It's about how can we help move the web. Remember I said web ecosystem evolution? This is what I mean by that. We're thinking about we talk with the folks at Svelte. We've talked with the folks at Solid, right? Like we're all talking because this is bigger than us. It's about the users at the end of the day, not about what tool that you used it with. It's about your users. All right, friends. Let's say you want to try out the signals. You're like, man, Mark, you talk a good game, bro. Look, I'm gonna tell you if it's good. All right, if you want to try it out, here's a link to a demo. That's a guided demo. And don't worry, I'm going to change the slide, but I will have another QR code at the end with all the links and everything for you. But you can scan this. So I know y'all want it. Go ahead and take that picture. I know people love to take pictures at conferences. I'm like, why are we doing it? All right. All right. Last call. All right. There we go. Don't worry. I promise you there's another one that you can get it. I promise. I got you covered. All right. Developer preview, you can use it right now. Developer preview does not mean beta, meaning it works now, right? Like it's not going to blow up your application, but it's probably not ready for production, right? So you can learn about it, see how it fits your organization, but maybe don't use it in product just yet. Wait till it becomes stable, okay? All right, fantastic. Let's talk about this one. Now, this one's another thing that came up in both keynotes from today and yesterday, server side. When I started, I keep saying when I started like I'm so old, but when I started writing code, everything was server side. You know where you put your application code? CGI-bin, right? That was the folder that you put your application code in. And then you hope that your Perl script, because that's all you could really use back then, was Perl, and you hope that your Perl script ran. And then you rendered everything, and then you sent it to the client. There were no AJAX requests when I started writing code. And it seems like time repeats itself, right? Like history repeats itself over time. Like the pendulum swings. At first, it was like move everything to the front end, move everything to the back end. And now we're someplace in between where you want to do both. I mean, and let's talk about how Angular is handling this. Let's talk about hydration. Now, this is a really big part of the story because let me tell you something, we didn't do it that great at first. We didn't even have hydration at first. We would render your application on the server. Let's say on the blue circles are your application. We would render it. Then we would send it to the client. It'll look nice. But before you could interact, we would have to re-render it and attach your behavior. Now, that doesn't sound so bad at first, but let me tell you what it results in. Let me tell you what it results in. Check this out. You see that flicker? That's what it results in because the first time you see it is the rendered from the server. And then when it flickers, that's because we destroyed the DOM, right? Your application in the DOM, and then we had to rebuild it. And sure, it's fast, but I mean, remember, think about our users. That's really a suboptimal experience, right? That's a suboptimal experience. And can we do better? I think we can. So now we're just doing hydration. We're just doing it. We pre-render on the server, do all the stuff we need to do, send it to the client, and instead of re-rendering on the client, all we're doing is adding event handlers and just linking in that JavaScript where we need to, right? Just where we need to. But we serialize data, pass it to the client, like all the stuff that you need is already done, but now we just improved this process. But this is only a small part of the bigger story, what Angular is doing on the server. If you want to get involved with this, because somebody told me in a candid conversation that it was too complicated to enable like server-side rendering in Angular. All right, fine. This is what you do now. Provide client hydration. That's what you do. There is no second part to that statement, right? One line. We've made it to one line that you set up your application to be run on the server, and you want to do hydration, that's what you do. And you can opt out in the template. If you want some things to skip hydration, we have flags for that now. So you're like, yeah, I don't want this to be hydrated. Okay, fine, then don't hydrate it. Tag it with skip hydration. No problem. We got you. But check this out. We're also moving toward you being able to set up your application for like full stack server side when you create it. So there will be even less work for you to do. It's like, hey, do you want this to happen? Like, do you want to do like full stack? Okay, fine. Just say yes, and we'll set it up for you. Trying to make your life easier because here's what we want to do. We want to completely step out of the way and let you build the solutions that your users need. That's what we're really trying to focus on. And no, these two things are very, very cool. So here's the problem with hydration and just server rendered apps in general, server-side rendering. The problem is you may need to get involved and do something based on maybe some interactions or some data or things that happen after it has been pre-rendered, right? You may need to do something. So we have two hooks that we're adding in. So after render, so let's say you want to use like, or initialize a chart element. You can't really initialize it on the server, right? It won't have the same impact you're looking for. But you need a really fine-grained way to control when that happens. So now you can add the after next render, which says, okay, so you rendered it, the next time, do this. Do this thing for me. So now you have even more control. But can I be honest with you? There's even more to the story. Here's what we found out. Cumulative layout shift is when you've been to a web page and then it starts loading and some stuff appears and then suddenly it juts down and starts moving around. So one of the ways to solve for that is through server-side rendering, where you just send the pre-rendered and kind of structured DOM to the client. We can help improve your cumulative layout shift by up to 40 times, right? Improvement. And this is based on import from Chrome. It gets better. Hydration, the largest content for paint, LCP, right? If you're doing your pre-rendering and you're sending things to the client using hydration, you can just have a 45% increase in performance around that. So your Lighthouse scores go up. Better experience for not only you as a developer, but for who else? The person that matters, your users. Hydration is in developer preview, but it'll be stable very, very soon. So you can try this out. You can get involved. But this is the part I've been waiting for. I've been trying to talk about this for like the whole last whatever time. Am I out of time? I don't care. All right. Sneaky. I'm not out of time. Let's just look at what's coming right around the corner. So everything that I just showed you, you can try right now. Like you could literally just open up your laptop and start doing all this stuff right now. Let me show you what's coming. And I need you to do me a favor. Can you put your hands by your side real quick? Hold on to your seats. All right. Let's talk about control. I'm sorry. I'm dad. I got dad jokes. All right. Let's talk about control flow. Like if, else, for loops, things like that. Right. In Angular, this is how you used to do it, which is okay. You had this like kind of special syntax that the star means something, and then you got ng if something happens. Okay, fine. The first part is good. Like if this thing is true, then render this thing. I feel good about that. But what is the else? What does that else hashtag robot even mean? What's that? It's kind of like a go-to, but you have to have a little bit of experience to even like read that. If you've never seen that before, you're like, what is this? Like I should have went to that solid talk because look at this garbage, right? Like, that's how you might feel, right? So, but that's kind of like a go-to where you get to this template and it'll actually render it. That is non-optimal developer experience, right? We can do better. We can definitely do better. Yes, we can. Let me show you how. This is exactly what we're doing now. All right, this is coming very soon. If user is human, you can read that syntax. It's almost similar to things that you've seen in other frameworks, almost, right? So it's familiar, but you can read this. Whether you like it is, that's a personal choice, right? And the reason I say that is because we had a request for comments and we proposed the syntax. And what we had at first, the community was like, no, do not do that. And so we actually changed to this, which is what the community actually wanted. All right. So you can read that. So if user is human is true, okay, render this component. Else if, look how clear that is. Else if a second conditional, then render this component. Else, very clear, the end case, the fall through case, very clear now. Do that. But I think you want more. I think you want more. Because let me show you this. Now, this is about to blow your mind. All right, so don't say put your head on your head because I'm blowing your mind. All right, no, don't do that. Let me tell you what we're gonna do. Now we're working on declarative lazy loading and prefetching. Okay. So when I say lazy loading, the idea is that not all parts of the application should be shipped to your client. So the problem is the bias that we have usually, as developers. Like many of us have like really powerful devices. We have powerful laptops, fast internet connections, powerful cell phones, 5G access. So we don't even think about the fact that some users are using significantly less powerful devices with significantly less bandwidth resources. So if you want to design for everyone, you have to have a smart way or intelligent way to load some things that need to be loaded and skip other things until the time is right. That's the thing. Until the time is right. Let me tell you more about this. All right. Let's say that I only want to load the recommended movies component only if they click that button. And I don't mean make the API call to get the data. I mean actually not even have that component shipped to the client. None of the code. 0 kilobytes shipped to the client at this point. That's what I want. That's my goal. 0 kilobytes of the component code for recommended movies. How could I do that? How can I do that? No, I'm kidding. No, I know the answer. All right, so here's what you can do in Angular coming up. So we're saying this. Click, thank you. So first, we use this thing called the defer block, okay? So we're saying defer the loading on interaction. But you might say, well, what's on interaction with what? Well, you see how those two match? So we're tagging that button with what's called a template variable. So if there's an interaction with that template variable, then load this thing. But what should I do in the meantime? Let me tell you what you're going to do. Well, that's where the loading syntax comes in. Very declarative. You know exactly what's happening. We're going to display this. Or you can display another component if you want. But what happens if it errors out? I don't know. You tell me what happens. Okay? You can have your specific error stuff. And then what about while we're waiting in general? What about before the interaction happens? What should be there? Okay, you got a placeholder. So you got a placeholder image there. Okay, wait, but okay, so you think this is good? Just wait. Check this out. So you have your defer on interaction, but what if you needed to defer until things were idle on the page? What if you needed to defer, or actually just immediate? Just bring it on in. What if you want to do it after a certain number of seconds? What if you want to do it once it entered the viewport? What if you want to do it on interaction? What if you want to do it on hover? This robust set of triggers can almost get you any combination of like defer conditions that you can think of. But somebody's like, no, I got more. I got my own conditions. You don't know me. You don't know me, son. David Goggins son. They don't know me, son. Let me tell you something. Custom triggers, right for you. I got you. How about this one? When the count is greater than 5. So the button that sets the count +1 every time it's clicked. We don't load this until that expression evaluates to true. So that's a custom trigger. So now you can start to imagine the combination of things that you can do. I don't think anybody's doing something like this. I mean, I know other people are doing like, oh, you know, we're going to load at some point. I don't think people are doing this. This is special. I'll be honest with you. But can we do better? Do you think so? Let me hear you say, yeah. Let me hear you say, yeah. All right, we can do better. We can prefetch, because I know somebody in here was like, well, this is all good, but can I like prefetch before I render? Yeah, you can. So here's the idea behind prefetch. You may say, well, Mark, if you can defer the loading, why would you prefetch? Okay, so here's what you get to do with prefetching. So defer loading means before, you know, you can defer when the JavaScript gets shipped to the client, right? If you prefetch, you can still get it to the client, but not render it. You see, so now we're breaking apart the render and load cycle. You see that? So you can load the JavaScript, so when you're ready, you can go ahead and do it. Let me show you what this stuff looks like. I'll tell you this stuff is special. So you can have a defer block where on interaction with whatever that trigger is, fine, but prefetch when it's idle. I know, I told you, I tried to warn y'all. Or back to your custom, prefetch when this other condition that I have defined. As a developer, I've defined the condition by which we can prefetch. Think about how magical that is, and think about what that opens up for you. Because remember when we opened up, we said that users want more. Now you can deliver more in a performance way. Now you're really changing the game. So how was that? Was it good? Again, the time you clap. Thank you. Oh, you all are so nice for clapping for me. Thank you for that. Okay. And guess what? Still backwards compatible. So even though we're rolling out all of this new stuff, if you are not ready to use it yet, your templates will still work in the latest version of Angular. Told you, Angular is ready to help you build the next generation of web apps. Your users want more, you want more, and we're doing our best to give you more. So here's my charge to you. Here's what I want to say. Angular v17, where a lot of this stuff will be dropping, November 2023. Definitely check it out. Be ready for that. And until then, friends, I want you to go and build great apps. My name is Mark, and I have loved spending time with you. Thank you. All right, I don't know if I have any time for questions. Do I have time for questions? Max? Oh, I thought he walked in like I didn't have more time. I can answer a few questions. Let's see. All right. Sorry, refreshing the browser. Okay, I was checking the chat there. What questions can I answer for you, friends? Oh, I appreciate that. So you said I was super clear. Good. I'm so glad. Yes. Oh, good question. Is Angular considering resumability? So resumability is the idea that you could pick up where you left off on the server. Well, what we just showed, hopefully that lets you all know that we have a clear path to explore that now, right? So we have a clear path to explore resumability. Will we ship it? We don't know. The one thing that we do on the Angular team, we don't make promises to when things are ready. That has helped us and hurt us. Some of you who've been around long enough know there's a quiet period where we were waiting too long, right? We kept promising this release, and then we never got the features out in time. But here's what we do. When things are ready, that's when we ship them. So we're going to explore, and if we get a good solution that contributes to the ecosystem, then we'll do it. But yeah, we're definitely looking into it. Absolutely. What other questions can I answer? I have a question for you. Why are you so fantastic? All right, friends. Thanks so much. I really do appreciate it. You all take good care.